Okay, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome. Cindy and I are here. We're really excited for this workshop in Teachers Need Teachers today. Welcome, Cindy. You're going to be talking about all about protecting your identity today. And this is a workshop we all need. So if you couldn't join us live, I really hope you'll watch this replay either in the Teachers Need Teachers group or on YouTube because this is so important for us to really spend some time working on ourselves. We actually show up better for our students, our family, everyone around us when we love ourselves, when we give ourselves some self-care and we spend time working on ourselves. This is like the sacred hour. I can't wait to spend this time with you, Cindy. So thank you so much for being here and helping us all prioritize ourselves. That's what it's really about, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. You are welcome. And it's not all always about just prioritizing us. It's about prioritizing what things we value too, which might mean prioritizing, time with other people and things. So,
So
yeah.
true. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm
love that.
excited to share with you. I did a little poll in one of the Facebook communities and got some interesting insights from that, and I'll be sharing that today in our little workshop.
Yay! We love data as teachers, right?
Yes, we do.
Amazing.
All right. Would you
Okay,
like
you
me to
want to get
share my
us
screen
started?
now?
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
great.
Okay. So we're sharing our screen. I am going to give you a little bit of a background about me in just a minute here, if I can get this on present. All right. So we are now starting our workshop.
Okay, there we go. I can see it now. Yep.
You can see it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about protecting and strengthening your identity. So, that's two different, adjectives or adverbs? It's been a while. Oops. So, anyway, just a little bit about me. I am a self-expansion coach, and I am the granny of 15 beautiful grandchildren who inspire me to live authentically every day. I'm also an educator, and with 30 years of experience as an educator and a coach and a mentor, I have dedicated my life to helping people embrace their unique identities and cover their inner strengths. So that's kind of what this is going to bring out today when we share. And also, I'm a multi-passionate professional. So I can balance teaching, wellness, creativity, sometimes better than others, but I can do those and stay grounded at the same time. I couldn't always say that, but I can say that now for the most part because I have learned to simplify, to organize, and to embrace every part of who I am. And then you might see behind me the she shed. Yes, I have a she shed, and this is my special place to hang out, to reflect, to create, and to recharge. So here's a quote for you. Protecting your identity starts with letting go of the idea that you need to prove it to someone. How many times, even as kids, prove it, prove it? Well, you know what? You don't have to prove it to anyone. So let me get started, and we're going to share the 5 aspects of protecting and strengthening your identity. So the first one, embrace your whole self, all facets, positive, what you perceive as negative, neutral, all facets. Shielding yourself against identity confusion. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. It really helps you to create that inner harmony and clarity that so many of us might be lacking when we're in the thick of it, in the trenches. The third section is on taking ownership of your happiness and understanding that that true happiness comes from within and not from these external validation, all these things that we do. And the last one is to set healthy, flexible boundaries, which is a way of keeping your identity going and strengthening it over time. And this is going to really help prevent burnout. So, the goals for our session today are for you to see how self-acceptance strengthens our identity. We're going to talk about resilience and happiness and well-being and how those are within our grasp. And then we're going to participate in some interactive reflection exercises. And if you're watching the replay, that's going to be perfect because you'll get to stop and just enjoy and answer and respond and write and reflect as much as you want to. So we're going to take a breath break first. Oftentimes, when we get to a workshop, we are exhausted by the time we get there because of all the things we've had to put in place so that we could set aside this time. So I want you to just close your eyes or leave them open either way to just take a couple of seconds to come back to yourself and to really focus yourself. And if you're an essential oil user, which I am, the peace blend is really phenomenal for when you're seeking that tranquility or you want to reduce your stress. And you can either, pour a little bit in your hand and cup it, or I have a roller bottle that I use. And we're just going to close our eyes. And then we're going to choose a number between 4 and 6. And we're going to let you do this on your own, but you're going to breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And whatever number that is. So if it's 4, you're going to breathe in 4, hold 4, out, in 4, out 4. Let's see. Yeah. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. There you go. Or it's like box breathing. So let's just take a few minutes to do that and breathe in and out. We're going to do it 3 times, and then we're going to move on into the content. That felt good. I do that as much for myself as I do for participants. All right, here's another quote. You've probably read this one before. This one is one that I should make a sign and put on the wall across from my desk. You are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. So first off, I want to give you a distinction between your self-image and self-acceptance. So, self-image, self-acceptance, these are part of our identity. However, self-image is basically a static idea. It's not it's not only a personal view like how you might feel about yourself, your mental picture or what have you. It's a product of learning. So you might have a mental image that isn't really who you are, but it's who you were told you are. And that's got its own ramifications. So just think of that as just a static picture, a mental picture, your self-image. Self-acceptance, however, is an action. And so it's being able to take responsibility for our own happiness and accepting all facets of ourself. And we're going to talk about that as we move forward in today's workshop. So, part number 1, I said we're going to talk about embracing the whole self. Okay, self-acceptance is going to be kind of the thread throughout this entire presentation. It's about embracing all parts of yourself, the good, the bad, everything in between, embracing them all. Because when you can do this, your identity becomes yours to define. It's not something that's shaped by anyone else's expectations. Your past expectations, your family's expectations, your administrator's expectations. No. When you learn how to embrace all parts, you are going to be able to define your identity yourself. And that's what's so empowering about it. So here's an example. Let's just say you've always been told you're too sensitive. Hmm. So instead of feeling the need to change or to hide your emotions, what if you embrace this sensitivity as a core part of your identity? That's when you see it as a strength rather than a flaw, and your sense of self becomes stronger. So I want us to take a minute to reflect on this. Think about a trait that you've been criticized for or you feel insecure about, and you're welcome to share it in the chat, in the comments if you're watching the replay, or just write it down on a piece of paper. Something you've been criticized for, and you can probably think of it pretty quickly if it's something that has really bothered you, maybe in the past or even now. And and so how would you if you were to be more accepting of this trait, how would that change how you view yourself and how you interact with others? So we can think back about being too sensitive. And if you're a guy, and I used a man in that photo because I had a situation like this in one of the schools I taught in. And because he was sensitive, the other men in the building were not the kindest to him. And it wasn't like, all over the place. He just was a gentle, sensitive man. He doesn't need to hide that. How would it be so much different if he were to embrace it and just interact with others like that's just part of who I am? And I'd like for you to think about that too. And this is when it's time for a little bit of an emotional break because when we think about stuff like this, and I think this is where sometimes we get a bit overwhelmed when we're doing this work, inner work, is we don't give ourselves a chance to do an emotional check-in. We all of a sudden we write ideas down, we write things we want to do, and we already go into fix-it mode rather than heal mode. And so an emotional check-in just gives you an opportunity to check in with yourself, to identify how you're feeling, if any emotions came up when I mentioned something that maybe your colleagues kind of criticize you about. Just think about, those feelings, list how some of these emotions are brought up and it brings up other emotions, and sometimes even physical aspects, physical indicators that this is really a bother for you. And if we were in a group setting right here, we were going to do a reflection wave and spend a couple of minutes reflecting on how does it feel to reflect on someone else's image of you? What does that feel like when you think about it? Is it demotivating? Is it makes you feel kind of bad? Yeah. So let's just think about that. And then when you think about this and you think about like flipping the coin and embracing that, are you noticing any resistance or are you feeling relief? Like, you know what? Yeah, this is where I need to be. This feels much better. And of course, you'll see on the screen the whisper blend. It's wonderful for that, to embrace your power and your inner strength. All right, part two, shielding against identity confusion. I mentioned that at the beginning. When we resist certain aspects of ourselves, there's things about us that we just don't want to deal with. That creates internal conflict, whether we face it or not, admit it or not. And that's what leads to identity confusion, to emotional discomfort, to physical issues, is when we are resistant to certain things that are going on. And you can think about it right now. How is your body feeling right now? Just as we're learning and talking, you could probably sense something in that right now as we're talking. So the key here is accepting all parts of who you are brings inner harmony. So therefore, we become less vulnerable to these external pressures that we all face in the education field and many other caregiving fields, and the criticisms that we might be used to or will receive in the future. So, and it doesn't happen overnight. So, my goal for you is just to start mending and healing so that that inner harmony can just start to blossom. Now, here's some examples of things that are going to happen, things that can stress us out as far as emotional exhaustion. Do. Constantly giving. Mm. Thank you, Sybil, for sharing. Yes, embracing strength, even though sometimes we don't see it. Constantly giving emotionally can get us to a place where we're feeling drained and disconnected with ourselves. Perceived failure, like when something goes wrong, either in the classroom or in some other aspect of what you're doing as a professional, we tend to internalize it and feel it as a personal failure. In an imbalance of expectations, oh my goodness, doesn't this happen a lot where we're juggling multiple roles and responsibilities? And the people, the powers that be, just add more things because we're highly effective teachers. And this can feel overwhelming and confusing on, where are the priorities here? You've given me so many different things to juggle. Where are the priorities? So it can be an issue. And then the fear of judgment comes in there too, just worrying about what other people are going to say if you do set some limits. Yeah, so well, you know what I mean. You get more when you're highly effective. And that's why it is when you're really good at handling children with behavioral issues. They just pile them all in your classroom. Yeah, it can be frustrating at times. And then difficulty delegating is another thing that we educators struggle with because we really have such a strong sense of responsibility and we struggle with delegating it, or we feel guilty, when we ask someone else to help out because everyone else is in the same boat. They're juggling all kinds of responsibilities. And so let me share with you the poll that I did. I did it last night and this morning in a group in Facebook. And look at the results. It said, which of these challenges do you think resonate most? And they were supposed to identify for themselves which area do they feel like they have the most resistance? And it's that emotional exhaustion. 44% of the people, I think there was like 80 people that responded by the time I captured this screenshot. And then you've got failure in there, expectations, judgment, difficulty delegating. But the biggest thing was that emotional exhaustion. What does that tell us? And, think about this. Which of these challenges do you think resonate most across other professions? I wonder if emotional exhaustion would be up at the top in some of those other professions as well. But if not, some of these other things definitely are what threaten our identity. So here's an expanded example. Let's take that emotional exhaustion since that was a big one. When we resist, we do not acknowledge our own emotional limits. We tend to make ourselves always available. And I'm raising my hand here. That's me, always available. And I tell myself now, just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to volunteer to do it. I have to remind myself of that. So the puzzle pieces here, that type of stuff leads to burnout and feelings of resentment or even feeling disconnected from your work. So who is it helping, in the long term? So let someone else, step up and hone their skills as well. The acceptance piece is just accepting that you do have needs, emotional, physical, spiritual needs, and that you can set boundaries that allow you to recharge. Because it's within those boundaries that we create that harmony we were talking about, and we reduce our vulnerability to those external demands in the future. So here's another reflection prompt. Is there a part of yourself that you've been trying to hide or resist? Think about it. How might accepting this part bring you more peace and renewed energy? And if you're watching the replay, this is the time to stop, get your pen and paper, and just do a little brainstorm, a brain dump, and think about it, reflect on it, and think about it. More peace and renewed energy. There you go. And when we practice over time, accepting these certain things that have kind of been uh, sticking points for us, I tell you what, your peace and your energy magnify the better you get at accepting and not resisting. That resisting takes a lot of energy. So here we are with another emotional check-in. The things that we just talked about. Did anything kind of hit a note or hit a nerve, so to speak? And just to think, trying to do everything, absolutely, that is an issue for us high achievers. And so when you're trying to get it all done, what emotions come up? What feelings come up? And tune into that physical piece of you. I know for myself, when I am trying to do all kinds of things and I'm feeling exhausted, it just makes it worse. I start making more mistakes. I start frustrating myself. Oh, yeah, you get overwhelmed and feel stupid for trying. So there's a lot of emotion that comes in when you first start learning how to protect your identity because we've had many, many, many years of letting other people sort of take the reins. But the better you get at it, the more calm and peace and energy you're going to see over time. So the reflection wave is for you to just take a few minutes, set a timer, and how does the idea of letting go of that resistance sit with you? So identify one thing, write about it for a couple of minutes. And does it leave you feeling challenged? Like, oh no, stressed, worried, or empowered? Like, oh yeah, I've got a plan now. It feels good. Yeah, it feels good when you schedule things out. Yeah, there you go. I appreciate that. All right. Uh-oh, did I mess up my screen? There we
I can
go.
still see the emotional check-in slide.
Okay. I clicked on something and I could see you and me instead of my slides.
Okay.
All right. So, part three, take ownership of your happiness. So, those other two, a little bit of heaviness, when you really get into the nitty-gritty of it. Let's talk about taking ownership of your happiness. And self-acceptance is a big piece of that. It empowers you to take responsibility for your own happiness. You become less reliant on external validation because your happiness is coming from you, from within you. And when you can accept yourself fully, you are in control of your happiness, said and done. Now, we're not talking necessarily, there's this dilemma between happiness and joy. Um, But, I might want to say contentment. You're in control of your contentment when it comes to this piece right here. All right, let's see. I was trying to see your message and oh yeah, huge transformation. You're right. All right, now let me see if I can get back to my screen. Oh, did I mess it up? No.
I still see part three.
All
Take
right.
ownership of your happiness.
My apologies, peeps. I don't
No
know. I can't.
worries.
I lost it. Huh.
Do you want to stop
Oops.
sharing and share again? Would
Oh,
that
I
work?
found it.
Okay.
Okay. So there you go. Sorry about that, guys. So you are in control of your contentment. Let's use that word instead of happiness, actually. I'm going to change that before I give this presentation another time. Um, okay, so here's another example. In an environment where you're expected to conform to certain behaviors, every day, right? Self-acceptance always allows you to stay true to yourself. So you're no longer bending to meet others' expectations. You're strengthened your happiness and your identity because you have learned how to reframe those expectations so that they meet your needs and the needs of those things that are a priority to you. And we have another reflection prompt. I am big on reflection because that's the only way you're going to internalize what you do. You go to so many workshops and you learn, and then you come home and you don't have time to implement. So here's a slide to help you implement. So think about a time when you compromised your happiness or your contentment for someone else's expectations. This one can get pretty deep. How would self-acceptance have changed your response? Hmm. So, like I said, if you're watching the replay, stop, do a little bit of brainstorming, brain dumping on compromising. When was the last time it happened? And what would happen if you had responded a different way? How do you think you would have felt? Our emotional check-in comes on in. Identifying that body-mind connection is so important. And as we reflect on our emotions, on our physical being, and taking time to just think, how do you feel about reclaiming your power in that moment? Not that you want to say, there, I got what I wanted. No, it's having that inner strength that really motivates us, that supports us emotionally. And therefore, is it energizing or does it feel overwhelming when you think about standing your ground? The fourth part is embracing change. Oh my goodness. And here I am at my age. Um, our identities evolve over time. And self-acceptance is what helps us to adapt to all of these changes. So instead of resisting that and feeling like I'm getting too old, all that stuff, think about it. You're just evolving into a different version of who you are. And we can embrace these new facets of ourselves while holding on to our core values, while still being the phenomenal teacher we were in the first few years. We're just going to go about it a different way. So here are some examples of shifting or evolving that we do as educators and as professionals in general. We shift roles. If you've been in any field long enough, you might have the opportunity to change roles, and self-acceptance is what's going to allow you to shift into that new role without losing sight of who you are or without fear taking over. And it's going to let your core purpose shine, which is helping others learn to grow. Adapting to change, change that you did not initiate. Mm, that's a tricky one. And self-acceptance helps us to adapt to that because we are resilient people. We have learned over time, and I've found that if you stay open to growth while honoring your teaching style and your values and, your family, whatever it might be, big difference when you've been asked to do something you really weren't expecting, didn't anticipate. That's personally and professionally. Balancing your personal growth. For me, I found that when I started doing more of the personal um, development, I struggled because there were some things I knew needed to change in my own life. And I did not have the knowledge that I have now, that I am evolving. My passions are changing. It doesn't mean that I'm not a good teacher anymore, um, or, in the classroom. It really helps us if you can accept who you are as you're changing, as you're growing, and you're balancing your personal with your professional. I'll tell you what, it really can expand your skills and it can expand the contributions you can make in in the world of teaching or nursing or whatever field that you're in, without feeling torn between the old and the new. And then embracing vulnerability. Mm. Self-acceptance. See, I see Sybil's shaking her head about that one. Self-acceptance helps us navigate more vulnerable aspects of our identity. There's things that happen um, in the work scenario and in our family lives. And if we can embrace all those things, we are going to feel more authentic in what we do. If we try to hide them or fret over them, you're going to feel like an imposter. At least I know I do. So just embrace it and don't feel like you've got what they used to say, skeletons in your closet. Yeah, let's get rid of those skeletons. So here's an expanded example of adapting to change. So a big one for educators, at least some educators, many that I've known over the years, struggling against new technologies. New technology, whoa, and policies. It's always been this way, and now you're changing it. So when we are resistant to some of these things that are going on in our personal life or our professional life, technology-wise, policy-wise, relationship-wise, it just creates a lot of stress and a feeling of either being left behind or I'm not good enough anymore. There's lots of feelings that come to play when we're resistant to change. And I know that sometimes I get things from the store that are new and improved. And I don't like the new improved version. I wish it had gone back to, the way it was. And it causes some stress. So rather than having that resistance, we're looking for acceptance, embracing change with resilience. It allows you to adapt more easily. You don't have to hold the torch forever. Just pivot a little bit. Stay true to your values and teaching style, but be okay with pivoting with a little bit of change. And I want to think a little bit about myself. And when I look back on my career as an educator, I realized that, hey, there was tons of busyness going on for years, especially when my kids were still at home. And I was trying to climb that education ladder. I was achieving, constantly taking on more responsibilities. And it was masking a lot of things that were going on in my life because as we evolve, things need to change. And if you're not in tune to that, then the pace that you're going forward is just not going to be sustainable. And that's what I've found for myself. It wasn't sustainable. And during one of the toughest seasons of my life, when I was trying to get a master's degree, go through a divorce, and my son was getting in trouble with his criminal conviction, I'll tell you, the stress caught up with me, and I had chronic migraines, depression, and I ended up on a 3-month medical leave. And I'm the kind of person that never used to take any sick days. I took my vitamins, and I went to work all the time. So taking off 3 months was definitely pivotal for me, and it forced me to wake up and to realize that I needed to get back in touch with who I am, for my sake, for the institution's sake, because they relied on me. And don't you know that even though I was on medical leave, I kept getting phone calls. When are you coming back? When are you coming back? But I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, my body took over. And so, and I had just lost touch with my identity. And so we need to stop seeking that external validation, that busyness, and just start protecting and strengthening who we are so that we can get back that passion, and we can still serve and uplift others, but we're not going to do it at the expense of ourselves. And that's a lesson that was hard learned for me because I was in my 50s. So you can imagine, from 20 to 50, those 30 years, I pushed, 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 and it wasn't a good thing. So let's just take a minute to reflect on changes. What changes in your life or your identity have you resisted? Or are you in the middle of resisting? Something's going on, and I'm not sure I want to move forward. I don't know which direction to take. Why are they doing this to me? So, how could accepting those changes lead to greater peace and alignment? I can't answer that for you. Only you can answer that for you. So that's why this is a good opportunity for you to just pause, do another brain dump on how to accept those challenges, so that you can walk into that peace and alignment. And I want to remind you, one of the things, it's kind of subjective. We have those critical scripts, those things that we say when we're trying to elevate those feelings, those opinions, maybe our missteps, things that we don't know what we're going to do. They can paralyze us. So if anything I've talked about today in strengthening your identity um, has really, got you thinking, then let's shift into that acceptance and that action and make it happen just a little bit at a time. Don't give in to all those critical scripts that have been holding you back. And then the very last one is how we make this work for the long haul, is setting healthy, flexible boundaries. So when we accept and we value who we are better equipped to set those boundaries that protect our well-being. Man, if I knew what I know now 30 years ago, my career would have been a lot different. But you learn, and you don't know what you don't know, right? So, however, I want you to keep in mind that it's important that we allow some flexibility in these boundaries that we set for ourselves, so that you don't set yourself up for criticism for yourself, criticizing yourself, because there's going to be times, even the best of boundaries that you set for yourself or you set for others, that you're gonna have to be flexible on that. You're gonna have to be flexible. That's what life's about, is flexibility. So here's some examples of areas where we might need to set some boundaries. Learning how to say no to extra commitments. If your schedule's already full, Just let them know. Someone said the other day, if you say, like, I'll check my calendar and get back to you, that gives you time to formulate a yes or no. Do I want to do it or not? Instead of just saying, okay, 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 yeah, sure. Say, I'll check my calendar and get back to you. And then it'll give you a little bit of a leeway so that you can formulate what you're going to say when you do get back with them. Setting boundaries between work and personal time. When you work from home, that's difficult. When you work in the classroom and then you bring it home, it can be difficult. So we want to be careful about that. I know we hear that a lot, but it is important. And then limiting that emotional labor. Okay, think about it. Things that happen that are emotionally draining, people, conversations, students. These are situations where you need to safeguard your emotional well-being and figure out how you are going to decompress when you are in a situation that is emotionally labor intensive. And working with children with special needs was a lot of, and we used to call them EH days, emotionally handicapped days. I'll tell you what, on those days when they were more emotionally handicapped than usual, it felt like, I had to figure out a way to go home and decompress because it was very taxing. And protecting your personal space. So just setting aside time for yourself, just for some solitude to recharge, to maintain that clarity that we're known for. And then respecting our time. So setting limits on how much time we do dedicate to others. So that's an important one to remember, isn't it? All right, so here's an example of that emotional labor. This is one of my sticking points. So that's one of the reasons I brought it up. Constantly or continuously overcommitting to emotionally draining situations. You do it out of guilt or out of fear of letting others down. It's a highly volatile situation and you feel like, you're abandoning them if you don't do this or do that. You've got to be careful with that because that is what's going to lead to burnout and resentment. And I should have resentment capitalized because that was a descriptor, an adjective or noun that came into my career for a while that I never thought I would say or feel. That's a tough one. It's still a hard one for me because, I got into that mode for a while. And so we need to be more accepting. I would like for you to consider that. I don't want to say need because you know what you need. Recognizing when you're reaching your emotional capacity and choose to step back a little or delegate. It doesn't mean you're a failure. Doesn't mean you're jumping ship. It's prioritizing your own well-being without guilt. And like I've said before, it takes time. We need to practice. And you'll be able to do these things without guilt. So here's our reflection prompt. Where in your life do you feel overextended right now? I named a few there in the examples. I want you to reflect on it for yourself. And what boundaries could you set to protect your well-being and your identity? Boundaries, limits, whatever it might be. And this would be a good time if you're watching the replay to pause and do another little brain dump. So we've come to the end of our presentation, and I created this guide to share with you on protecting your identity. It's a weekly reflection guide, and it helps you reflect on your wins, your challenges, your personal growth for the week, and it gives you some practical exercises to help strengthen your boundaries, because you might already have boundaries in place, yeah, but people keep pushing them. So, and it'll help you with strengthening that and strengthening your self-acceptance because you know what? Our brain thrives on repetition. So, whatever you do over and over again, and we want it to be protecting our identity over and over again instead of being critical over and over again. So it'll be an opportunity for you to just do a weekly reset so that you can align with your values and your goals for yourself and protect your energy. That's what it's all about. So we have that available. And we're ready for any questions. I know there's not anybody here live right at the moment. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're here. But if you do have questions, hey, reach out. Type them in the comments. If this is on YouTube, write them in the show notes, whatever. Get in touch with us in the school community. Teachers need teachers so that we can just focus on that identity expansion. I know I covered a lot today, so you may have questions. All right. And then the last part is just to take a deep breath and get ready to sign off. And I'll tell you, if you did happen to have your essential oils handy, get out that lavender. And it really helps to just promote that emotional balance. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and say goodbye. So let's see, there we go.
Cindy, amazing. That was such a wonderful, deeply reflective workshop. I really, really
Mm.
appreciate it. You got me thinking on every single one of those points and taking notes and yeah, reach out to us. Let us know. We can better serve you by letting us know what's resonating from you from this workshop. What questions do you have? What's hardest for you? What comes easily? What have you been
Yeah.
focusing on? Right? Things like this, it's
Yes.
super helpful because then we can really get some good community engagement and work on things together as well. One thing I love about communities like Teachers Need Teachers is that we can have conversations and hold each other accountable. And because for me, a lot of what you talked about is I need somebody to help me hold accountable, right? Like I need to do
Yeah.
this together. It's so much
Mm.
easier if we do this together and we say, hey, this week I'm working on, you know, decompressing, for example.
Yeah.
For me, decompressing, especially when I was in a classroom, but I need to do it better now again, is walking in nature in the afternoon. And
Mhm.
that's my way of letting the day go and getting ready for the next part of my day, which is with my family, doing personal things, right? And
Mhm.
that's just transformational for me. But like the season's changing, it's getting darker earlier. I've been doing my walk earlier, and I just realized when you were talking about decompressing, I was like, oh, I think it's still good to do it midday, but it was really about the end of the school day that
Yeah.
was so powerful. We have to recover. We have to decompress.
Yes, and I sometimes can work and work and work and work and work.
Right.
And my husband will say, "Do you think it's time for a hot tub?" Because we have a hot tub out on our deck. I mean, any time of year, even when it's hot, sometimes we'll go out there after the sun goes down and just sit and
Yeah.
listen. Yeah. So,
Yeah, the silence. I've been thinking
hmm.
about that too on my walk yesterday. I was like, some people are always listening to podcasts or YouTube videos, and it's a great thing for them. Some people are always in silence. Some people are, I don't know, conversing with somebody. And then I realized really it's probably more about like what feels good to you and what's your purpose. If you're trying to decompress, maybe silence or relaxing music is good. But if you're trying to like stay pumped up and really make it an exercise thing, maybe getting in that podcast or that YouTube video helps,
Yeah.
is useful because we're all such learners as educators and high achievers. It's like, when can I learn one more thing? And then sometimes
Yes.
we put that in and so we don't decompress during the time we actually wanted to decompress.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to say is, we need time to just cleanse the palate,
Yeah.
clear the brain. because we are always doing, 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 and we just need to open up to a little bit of just chill.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, let's say you're walking and you're talking away, or you're listening to your videos, or I mean your a podcast and stuff, the chances that you're going to see that really beautiful bird make a quick little something. I mean, when you're in nature, if you blink, you miss it.
Yep.
So there are so many times, especially in the hot tub and even at night, if I'm talking to my husband and we're just talking, and I'm not looking up at the sky, he'll see a star, falling star, and I won't.
And you'll miss it, right?
I'll
Because
miss it because
we're
I'm the one
present
that's
using
going,
those senses. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So just think about what you're missing out when you keep
Yes.
yourself busy 24/7.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think I put a poll in Teachers Need Teachers kind of recently asking, do you ever sit in silence or walk in silence? And I think in general, today, the way technology is in our pocket at all times and such,
Yeah.
it's a rare thing, but such a powerful thing. When I was walking in the forests of Belgium, my senses were so heightened to
Mm-hmm.
sound, to sight,
Mm-hmm.
to the feeling of the wind, to the rustle of the leaves, right? But if I hadn't been in silence, I wouldn't have those heightened senses,
Mm-mm.
and those heightened senses end up serving me better at other times as well because I'm using my whole body, which is how we are as human beings supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be just using our eyes or just our ears, right? We almost become what is the word? Desensitized? I can't say it.
Desensitized. I
Yes,
know. I read an article the other day on LinkedIn, and the one thing that she said is your body is not just feet that carry your brain to another meeting.
right.
Okay? We think we're just a brain and feet, but we're not. We're not. We're a whole body here. So let's reflect that. And I just loved that. And
Yeah,
I'm going
I
to
love
remember
that
that
too.
for a long time because we're not just a brain.
Yeah, we're not. And it's interesting because as you get older, I like started doing yoga, but I didn't start until my body started hurting and I
Yeah.
needed to stretch, right? But I'm so glad I started that and I wish I'd known it earlier, but I didn't. I had to give myself
Yeah.
that forgiveness, right? But it wasn't until I started doing yoga that I was like, I felt my whole body again. Because in the
Mhm.
classroom, you're up and down, you're all over the place, but none of it is mindful in a way,
Yeah.
right? You're just moving and using your whole body. But when you use your body in like yoga or stretching and you're mindfully moving your body and feeling it and breathing, it's a whole different recovery for your
Yes.
brain and body all at the same time.
We can bring that in. We've talked about this before, I think, bringing that mindfulness into the classroom. I know we
Yes.
have in some of our
Yes.
chats in the community, um, helping children do that too. Because were you ever taught how to handle stress when you were a kid?
No,
No,
not at
besides
all.
go to your room or something, you
Yep.
know. So teaching still students the importance of that, using aromatherapy around the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, I had well, it's just because a lot of my students were nonverbal. So we had to come up with a lot of things that could help them express.
Mm-hmm.
And my little essential oil bottles that I had made for them, oh, they loved it. And when they would be stressing, they'd be pointing to the picture. They want their
They
basket of
wanted that
bottles.
one.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what? Will you, if you don't mind, when this video is posted, putting in the comments some of the essential oils that you recommend or
Yeah,
know what they work good for?
actually, I've created a kit too, a little bundle
Okay.
through doTERRA that has a link to each one of the oils that I mentioned
Amazing.
in the thing. And it comes with, I made a little guide that goes with it to tell you how to
Oh,
use them.
amazing. I would
Because
like to get back into them.
yes, you would be surprised how many people, like I do these little essential oil things, and
Uh-huh.
people send me a list of their oils. They might have 100 oils that they've never used or hardly ever use.
And don't know what to use them for, probably.
No. And so I help them categorize and organize and stuff. But yeah,
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll put that little the guide I made for how to, for this specifically for this workshop and the oils I mentioned in this workshop, and I'll share it with you too.
amazing. That'd be so helpful. When my daughter went through brain balance after fifth grade, essential oils and smells were a part of it. And so it was fascinating for me to learn when to give her the peppermint spray, when to give her the, depending on what we want her
Yeah.
brain to do at the time, calm or get more energy or whatever it might be. Amazing. And we'll get the guide for the workshop
Yes.
into the
Yep.
comments and into the classroom with this replay at all as well.
Yep.
Wonderful, Cindy. Well, this was just really, really special. Thank you so much
Well,
for
thank you
doing
for
this.
letting me share. I mean, it's not your typical teacher workshop, but I think it's just as important as the others.
It's just as
So,
important, and we just need to advocate and help each other out and help our colleagues out because
mm,
we need to prioritize and make time for this kind of thing. We need to
yeah.
learn to serve ourselves. So I really, really appreciate everything that you shared here, Cindy. Thank you
Well,
so
you're
much.
welcome. And thank you for opening the doors for us.
Yes, my pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, so we'll see you inside the community. Looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.